So the judicial system is represented by a scale oftentimes because it's meant to be fair and unbiased, right? So it's meant to provide a balance. When we think about what the purpose of the justice system is, it's to, well, provide justice. But the thing is, each person's idea of what justice means is different based on their ideology, their perspective, and the lens through which they see the world. So we have to have a system that kind of communalizes it and tries to find a balanced way. Now, how you see the balance, again, can be determined by your ideology, right? For some people, it might be an eye for an eye. If you do something bad is done for you. That's kind of generally the guiding principle in our justice system. But in others, it could be that we try to, say, prevent bad things from happening in general. Our way of something bad happening to you in retribution is the prison system. So in prison, you take away those most prized possessions that we as Americans have. It's the loss of your liberties and your freedoms, right? So some of your constitutional rights are taken away temporarily. However, you still, even after you're in prison, have certain rights still. So we're going to examine what are the rights of someone who has been convicted of a crime and what are the rights of someone who has been accused of a crime. So just because you've been accused does not mean you'll necessarily get the punishment. You get certain rights to defend yourself and to try to find the truth or try to find or negotiate a fair punishment. Now, of course, we have this because if we all just got to bring about our own system of justice, however we saw fit, it would be like Game of Thrones, right? We'd be locking each other in cages just because we saw the reason. We'd be dueling with swords. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully we have a little bit more civility. But either way, if everyone was just imparting their own version of justice on each other, there'd be no set standard. So we have the court system to theoretically provide one set standard of justice for everyone. For some context, it's important to point out that the United States is number one at putting people in jail. There are more people in the United States in jail than anywhere else in the world. There's also a greater percentage of our population in jail than any other country, even authoritarian countries. We are very good at putting people in jail. That's not only because the United States in general incarcerates people at a higher rate, it's also that people tend to be sentenced to stay in jail longer, so that prison population swells much quicker than in other countries. The Justice Department is a top-down structure. So the head of the Justice Department, the head of the system of laws in the United States, is the Attorney General. Theoretically, the Attorney General is the top law enforcement person. They are in charge of all police departments, all the FBI, all civil rights investigative divisions, people that investigate tax fraud. You have U.S. attorneys. You have international crime-fighting offices, whatever. You have the U.S. Marshals. You have the ATF. Anything that involves law enforcement in the United States falls under the jurisdiction of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is not the president's lawyer, though. That's a common misconception. So the Attorney General, while they are appointed by the president, does not argue on behalf of the president or represent the president. If the federal government is sued in court, for example, when the state of Washington sues the Trump administration and it goes to the Supreme Court, the person that goes to the Supreme Court and argues on behalf of the government is called the Solicitor General. It's this kind of cool side job. So they, yes, report to the Attorney General, but the Attorney General themselves will never actually go and argue in the court on behalf of the United States or on behalf of the president or the government. Some quick key terms going forward. A defendant is someone who has been accused of a crime and is being put on trial. The prosecutor is the person, a lawyer, who works for the government and who's in charge of charging people with crimes. So if you are arrested, your case file, whatever the police wrote down, that we've caught this person doing this, that goes to a prosecutor and they decide whether or not they were going to charge you or not, what they're going to charge you with, so what crime they think you broke, and then they are in charge of mounting the prosecution against you. So they go to court and they argue that you did it. If you were found guilty, you are convicted. And then finally, the term indigent refers to being able to not being able to afford.